Welcome back, friends. In this online lesson, we will discuss William Shakespeare's 1606 play, The Tragedy of Macbeth. I know a lot of you are scared of Shakespeare's plays, so I will try my best to help you with that. Let us begin with a few quick facts. Shakespeare wrote this play sometime between 1606 and 1607, and it was first published in the first folio of 1623 from a transcript. Divided in 5 acts, it is the shortest of Shakespeare's tragedies without diversions or subplots, something most of Shakespeare's plays are full of often. This play was one of the most talked about play of its time. There are reasons for that. This play deals with now infamous topic of witchcraft, something that was a lot talked about during the time this play was written. In fact, James I, before becoming the King of England, wrote a book on it in 1597. Added to that, James I was one of the target of the gunpowder plot, and interestingly, Macbeth shows the murder of a king in Act 2, Scene 3. Obviously, that didn't go unnoticed. Now let's move to the plot. I will try to put it as briefly as possible so that we can move on to the important part. So the play begins with the famous appearance of the three witches. Then we move to a military camp where King Duncan gets the news that his generals Macbeth and Banquo defeated two invading armies, one from Ireland and the other from Norway. On the other hand, on their way from the battles, Macbeth and Banquo meets the three witches and they prophesy that Macbeth will be the Thane of Cawdor and later the King of Scotland. Initially, he isn't much sure of that until he is made the Thane of Cawdor because the former Thane betrayed the Scottish army. The king plans to dine with Macbeth in Macbeth's castle in Inverness that night. Macbeth writes to his wife, Lady Macbeth, telling what had happened so far. When Duncan and Macbeth arrive at Inverness, Lady Macbeth convinces Macbeth to kill King Duncan when he is asleep. Thus, Macbeth becomes the new king. However, along with the prophecy that Macbeth would become the king, the witches during the encounter also prophesies that Banquo's heirs will seize the throne in future. Macbeth orders a group of murderers to go kill Banquo and his son Fleance. Banquo is killed but not Fleance, like a typical Shakespearean turn of events. However, the tipping point comes when the ghost of Banquo appears during the royal feast. Thus, Macbeth goes to meet the three witches who show him a sequence of demons and spirits who present him with future prophecies that Macbeth must be aware of Macduff, a Scottish nobleman who had issues with Macbeth becoming the new king, and that Macbeth is incapable of being harmed by any man born of woman, and he will be safe until Birnam Wood, a forest, comes to Dunsinane Castle. Macbeth is relieved and feels secure because he knows that all men are born of woman and that forests cannot move. But anyway, he seizes Macduff's castle and executes his family. But Macduff wasn't home. He was in England with the son of King Duncan, Prince Malcolm, helping him raise an army to dethrone Macbeth. The army has the support of nobles who didn't like Macbeth anyway. Before the army of Prince Malcolm arrive, Lady Macbeth kills herself, being plagued with fits of sleepwalking in which she bemoans what she believes to be bloodstains. That obviously makes Macbeth sad, but he nonetheless prepares to fight Malcolm's army. Oh yes, the prophecies do come true. The English army advances towards Dunsinane, where Macbeth is preparing for the battle shielded with boughs cut from Birnam Wood. In the end, Macduff did kill Macbeth because he was not born of woman but was instead untimely ripped from his mother's womb. In the last video, some of you asked me to do a bit of character analysis of the central characters, so let us start off with the character of Macbeth. Our initial impression of Macbeth is that he is a brave warrior. However, after the scene involving the three witches, we realize that Macbeth's physical courage is also accompanied by a consuming ambition and a tendency to self-doubt. The prediction that he will become the king brings him joy, but it also creates inner turmoil. His bravery, ambition and self-doubt play a big role throughout the play. What differentiates Macbeth from other Shakespearean villains is that, like most of them, he is emotionally strong enough to conquer his guilt and self-doubt. Before he kills Duncan, Macbeth is plagued by worry and almost aborts the crime. It takes Lady Macbeth's steely sense of purpose to push him into the deed. After the murder, however, her strong personality begins to crumble, leaving Macbeth increasingly alone. He swings between fits of fevered action in which he plots a series of murders to secure his throne, and moments of terrible guilt as when Banquo's ghost appears, and absolute pessimism after his wife's death when he seems to succumb to despair. These fluctuations reflect the tragic tension within Macbeth. He is at once too ambitious to allow his conscience to stop him from murdering his way to the top, and too conscientious to be happy with himself as a murderer. One scholar has even pointed out that unlike many of Shakespeare's other tragic heroes, Macbeth never seems to contemplate suicide. Instead, he goes down fighting, bringing the play full circle. It begins with Macbeth winning on the battlefield and ends with him dying in combat. Another character we should give importance to is Lady Macbeth. When we first meet Lady Macbeth, she is already plotting Duncan's murder, and she seems more stronger, more ruthless, and more ambitious than her husband. She seems fully aware of this and knows that she will have to push Macbeth into committing murder. She also wishes that she was not a woman so that she could do the murder herself. This theme of the relationship between gender and power is key to Lady Macbeth's character. Her husband at times implies that she is a masculine soul inhabiting a female body, which seems to link masculinity with ambition and violence. When her husband hesitates to murder Duncan, she repeatedly questions his manhood until he feels that he must commit murder to prove himself. Lady Macbeth's remarkable strength of will persists through the murder of the king. It is she who steadies her husband's nerves immediately after the crime has been perpetrated, but later she goes mad. Just as ambition affects her most strongly than Macbeth before the crime, so does guilt plague her more strongly afterward. By the close of the play, she sleepwalks through the castle, desperately trying to wash away an invisible bloodstain. Once the sense of guilt comes home to roost, Lady Macbeth's sensitivity becomes a weakness. She is unable to cope and thus kills herself. The question remains, was Macbeth a good king? Who would have been a better king, Macbeth or Banquo? Banquo would clearly have been a good king, and Macbeth is jealous of him, acknowledging his courage and wisdom at times too. Macbeth is unfit to be a king. He is dishonest, happy to blame others for Duncan's murder. He is even responsible for the killing of Macduff's wife and children. Macbeth becomes the war sort of king, a tyrant whose cruelty drains the lifeblood from his country. Preparing from an exam point of view, you should also look into the themes like trust and betrayal, as to how Duncan trusted the wrong man with disastrous consequences, or how Macbeth trusted the witches and ultimately that brought him down. And obviously you cannot overlook the theme of guilt. One of the most striking images in the play equates guilt with the idea of blood-stained hands. Macbeth refers to his own hands as hangman's hands, which would be covered in blood from cutting victims of execution. When Lady Macbeth urges him to wash the blood off, he realizes the impossibility of washing away his guilt. I hope this video was helpful. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking why I haven't talked about the three witches. I am planning to make a whole different video on it. Share this video with your friends and let's meet in the next video. Thank you.